In our workbook that are on page number 18, and we started last week answering number 6, and we did not finish answering number 6, so we're going to continue with number 6 and go down through and finish all the questions in this lesson and be ready to go to the next lesson on next Sunday. Before we begin, let's go ahead and have a word of prayer. God, you amaze us with your power. You amaze us with your gentleness. You amaze us with your justice, and you amaze us with your compassion. We are so grateful to you that we have your word, that we can read it and study it, and we can come together on the first day of the week with other people who love you and love your word, and open it up and learn more how it can change our lives. We thank you that we have this quarter to evaluate ourselves personally, to evaluate this church, and to find out ways that we can bring you more honor and more glory in our lives individually and as we work together collectively. Help us have good minds, good hearts, good attitudes as we study. Through Jesus we pray. Amen. All right, so same thing as always. If you have a text, if you're watching online, you can text that comment to us and it will be put up on the screen. If you are shy and do not want to make your comment and you're in the auditorium, it's okay if you text that comment as well, and it will get put up there. If you do have a comment that you'd like to make, raise your hand, and you can raise your hand and keep it raised so the second microphone guy can come find you as well. That's helpful. If you just wait until the other guy gets done talking and put your hand down and raise your hand, it keeps those guys running too fast. So please do that. That would be very, very nice of you to do that for us. So question number 6. Go ahead and go to the next screen. We already had some of these that we mentioned last time. Phoebe, as people, one person who made a difference. We've got a question, answer up here already. All right, so come up here to Jeff. He's going to talk in just a second. So we have Phoebe. We have the woman at the well. We have Timothy's mother and grandmother. We have the leper who was thankful out of the 10. We have the woman who had the bleeding in her body for 12 years. We have the official, or Jairus' daughter, how that whole story made a huge difference. And we had Aquila and Priscilla, how they took Apollos aside and they taught him more accurately the truth because he only knew the baptism of John, and how that made a huge difference to him. And then everybody else, he made a difference too. And that's one of the things we started talking about at the end of last class, that when you make a difference in someone's life, then you have a part in everyone that they make a difference in their lives. And so it really makes it really shows that how important it is that we take our time to make a difference in somebody's life. Because we don't know if we make a difference in someone's life, they might make a difference in a whole bunch of people's lives who make a difference in a whole bunch of people's lives. And so it's very important that we do that. And we'll talk about that more specifically with us in just a moment. Jeff.
Well, the first one that came to my mind was Luke. He's not an apostle, but he's brought us information, very vital information from his Gospel of Luke, and then also in the Acts, book of Acts. And I just think about him because he took the diligence that usually comes along with being a physician. Usually think about that, very studious, to write down a very accurate history of what happened, especially in the book of Acts, of just the history of the church. And I just wonder, as he's was traveling with Paul, I just wonder when the light bulb came on in his head and said, I got to write this stuff down. This is just fantastic, as he's talking to Paul. And I'm just so glad he wrote it down. I don't know what we'd do without the book of Acts to explain to us how the church began and how it grew.
Yeah, it shows us that the Holy Spirit can use anybody that he chooses to use to do whatever he wants them to do. So here you have this guy who didn't play maybe a prominent role, maybe sort of in the background, but he had this mind that he could use to remember and to research and to ask other people and put out this nice, thorough account of what Jesus did. And then, we have 3 other Gospels, but with the book of Acts, we have this one major source that we know what happened there after Jesus left and what the apostles did, the Acts of the Apostles, right? And so we have that record there. So he did a huge task for the kingdom in what he did. All right, who else you have? Somebody who made a difference. Carol? All right, and then we have a couple up here, so we're going to keep Joe busy.
I'm thinking of Zacchaeus being short and stature. I understand this climbing the tree. Just ended up being in the right place at the right time, serving dinner to the Lord and his disciples.
All right, so he didn't set out to make a difference that day to anybody's life but his own, right? He just wanted to see the Savior, see this guy walking by that had all the attention to him, but he found himself in the right spot at the right time, and he had the Lord over. Then he made the proper restitution for the things that he did that were wrong, if any, and he just was willing to do what the Lord wanted him to do. Okay, Brenda?
I'm thinking of Dorcas,
Okay.
who served just the lowest in society, the widows who have such low standing, and they were poor, and she worked among them. And when she died, they were all upset and crying and gathered around her.
Yeah.
So that they went and sought out.
Yeah, what a great thing that she did, right? I mean, you just think about this. This one lady just went about doing what she could do, sort of what Luke did, right? This is what I could do. Luke probably couldn't sew a garment of his life depended on it, right? And here this lady, I don't know that for a fact. I'm not trying to besmirch Luke or anything in his sewing abilities, but I just don't think he did. And then you had this Dorcas, this lady Dorcas or Tabitha, who did have that ability. And so she just went about doing what she could do. She did it and helped people that other people might have forgotten about. And then when she died, there's this just huge outpouring of, boy, what are we going to do without her? And she's done so much for us. And I've always pictured her in this. And in my own mind, what if there were a box where everything I've ever done for anybody could fit? You know, maybe every meal I cooked or, you know, whatever I did, everything could fit in that box. What would that box look like? And Dorcas's box would have been overflowing, right? Overflowing. You have some people are so good at writing cards. Just think of every card you've ever written came back to you one day, and you had a box of all those cards that you did good in the service that you could do for the Lord. Okay, Mary?
The boy who shared his lunch.
Okay, all right. Again, this is another amazing thing. The boy who shared his lunch. That boy didn't set out to do anything special. And what about his mother? She's probably the one that packed it, right? And so you have the mother gets up and packs the lunch. The boy takes it, and they didn't think anything of it, but nobody else had any food that day. You have all these people there, and they come and they say, hey, we need your lunch. I mean, could you imagine? Look, it's not very much. It's just for me. Gives it up freely. And that boy, could you imagine how many times that boy, as he grew up to be a man, shared that story with people? You know? Oh, I mean, probably his nickname. Oh, you're the guy with the lunch. You're the boy with the lunch. Oh, the boy with the lunch. Yeah, we know you. And all those 5,000 men plus women and children. And you shared your lunch with me one day. I remember that. And it's just an incredible thing. And I think that is a huge principle that we're learning here. Is most of us don't set out to change the world when we wake up in the morning, right? We set out to live our life ready to make a difference whenever we can to one or two people. And if we make a difference, can you think about this? If you made a difference in someone's life every single day, just one person every day, what a huge, we have up here, we need a microphone up here. Cindy, for Cindy. What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing that would be if you made a difference in one person's life every single day. We hope it works.
Okay. I have a loud mouth, so you can probably hear me anyway. I was going to say Mary Magdalene, because without her, seeing Christ as when he was raised from the dead, the disciples would not have known. So there's a song that's called I've Just Seen Jesus. And whenever I hear that song, I think of her, because she saw him and she immediately went to tell and spread the news.
And she was surprised. I mean, sort of surprised at what she found and what she could do that day. But there's a major difference in everybody's life because she was there at that particular moment, at that particular time to do what she could. All right, we have a couple more. If Jenna has one. I hope this isn't Jenna's, but Cornelius. I think Cornelius was huge, right? He was just a good man, a man of a good reputation, was good to other people, wasn't trying to change the religious world, wasn't trying to be the one that opened up the door to all other Gentiles to be saved, but yet he did because he was just a good person doing what he needed to do to other people. Charitable, generous. Jenna?
Lydia, the seller of purple, that
Okay.
took Paul into her home and wound up bringing others to him and bringing her family was baptized, and then she was able to bring him down to the river, and he saw more people. And so she was a major part of the gospel being spread in that area.
Yeah, she major part of the gospel in Philippi. You know, she was down to the river just doing what she did on that day every week, going down to pray. There was no synagogue there, going down to pray, and she met a pretty interesting guy that day, a couple of interesting fellows that day. And next thing you know, when the whole episode of Philippi is over, whose house does he go back to? He goes back to Lydia's and continues to encourage the brethren through the people there. At Nicodemus, you know, sometimes you think not only in the time of Christ, but there's a movie or show out now called The Chosen, and the first series really is from his perspective. You know, what must he have been thinking and during all of the time of Christ as he came to him? The man possessed with 1,000 demons. I love this story because he wants to go with Jesus. When Jesus gets in the boat, Jesus says, no, you can't come with me. You just go tell other people what the Lord has done for you. And remember, they kick him out of town. He's in the Decapolis, which is the 10-city region down on the southeast side of the Sea of Galilee. The next time he comes back there, in Matthew 15 and verse 29, it says, Jesus departed from there, skirted the Sea of Galilee. Verse 30, then great multitudes came to him, having with them lame, blind, mute, maimed, and many others. And they laid him down at Jesus' feet, and they healed him. So you have this region where they said, get out of here, we don't want you here. This guy goes around telling everybody his story. When Jesus comes back, they meet him with all kinds of sick people. I have to think that guy did what Jesus told him to do. You just go tell people what Jesus did for you. Just go tell them what Jesus did for you. All right, I don't know who has the microphone. All right, Gail.
I was going to say Stephen, because he served in helping the church and the needs of people in the church, and then he even to the point of death stood up for Christ and to the point of death.
Yeah. You would probably rather be the first Gentile convert than the first martyr, but you know, both of them did wonderful, wonderful things for the Lord and making sure that we have great examples to follow even to this day. The other couple that I have Mary, Lazarus' sister. I mean, she was just something. She anointed Jesus' feet one time, and she was the one that was wanting to know what Jesus had to say. When Martha was always busy doing other things, and come tell my sister to help. She's cares about the important things. And what a great example she was to those who came around her. And the other one I had down here that I think is a good one to think about is just the widow who gave 2 mites. Again, didn't set out, to do anything big that day. But when Jesus saw what she did, he made mention of that instead of giving out of her abundance, she gave out of her poverty. She gave all that she had to live on. And that was just an incredible example to the apostles and to everybody else that were there and seen that. And all of us who hear that every day. That's one of the great things about the people who are recorded in the Bible is that they are able to live on because they're recorded. We'll spend a few minutes answering this question. Tell me who, and a brief reason what or how someone in your life has influenced you in a what you consider profound way. Just made a huge difference in your life. That's not in the book. All right, Carol shared one with me the other day when we were talking. Maybe it's the same one.
Most definitely. My friend Sherry Robinson has made all the difference in my life. She brought me to Christ. She taught me everything that I know, gave me the foundation to stand on, and I stand on it today with her help and with her love.
All right. Yeah, the specific example that Carol shared with me, if you don't mind me sharing it, is that I thanked her for always having her Bible lesson done when she came to clean the building on Thursday. I said, that's just encouraging that I know you always have your Bible lesson done and willing to make comments in class. And she mentioned Mrs. Robinson, is that what it was? And how she was someone that did participate in class. And although Carol claims to be a shy person by nature. She says, sitting by her and watching her make those comments gave me the courage to make a comment in class when I had a comment to make. So what a difference, not just in bringing it to Christ, but just in participating. So now we all benefit from Carol's comments, who benefited from this lady who spent time with her. Phil.
I'm sure Tim will remember this, Tim Welsh, but when we first came to Palm Springs, we had left the same church and come over here to get our kids more involved around other kids. But over the years, Tim and I developed a very personal relationship where we were able to discuss things, very intimate things between two men. And I was able to express things to him without judgment and criticism. He loved me. And he showed something to me and gave me something as a man, Christian man to another Christian man, that I was looking for. And he helped me at that time experience that, and I needed that, and that helped me for many years. Not just being here, but just in my life personally.
Oh, good, good. Thank you for sharing that. Brian.
Yeah, Jimmy Petrus. Many of you know Jimmy. He first inspired me to be a better Christian, to actually live up to the name Christian. I was already a Christian, but I was kind of a bump on a pew, do the bare minimum, didn't read my Bible very much, and he really pushed me to start reading my Bible a lot. And that's when I really started to know who God was and what he wanted from me. And then what sprung from that was he also then inspired me to be a preacher, because he was just on fire for the Lord. And those of you who know Jimmy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. His zeal was contagious, and he had a way of pushing you to greater heights spiritually. And me becoming a preacher was a big part of Jimmy.
All right, so everyone that Brian influences, Jimmy plays a part in that, right? So it's important. We got several people here. All right, Tim.
I just want to say, Phil remembers it wrong completely. No, it was a
You
time...
were judging him the entire time?
It was...
And you didn't love him at all? Oh, man. Yeah. It's a terrible story.
No, it was a time... It was a time in my life, really, where I was on my last gasp as a Christian at that point in my life. Honestly, thinking about, I don't need this in my life. I was very discouraged in the church in general. And, I met Phil just before we actually went out to Apopka. If I hadn't had Phil and his influence, this goes both ways, I guess. He told me one time that we were like David and Jonathan, and I don't think I've ever had a relationship like that at such a low point in life. And, we kept each other from going under. So that's the way I remember it. It wasn't just, he gives me way too much credit because I was going under.
All right, so we didn't have the story totally wrong. He just left out the part where he helped you too. So we figured that was probably true, but all right, I don't know who has the microphone over here. Charlotte, okay.
My husband was the most influential in my life. I was a Baptist Christian, but until I met him, I found out I really wasn't. But he taught me and showed me the way. But he lived what he taught, and he walked the walk. And through the years, he preached for a long time. I did things I'd never in my whole life ever thought I would do, because when he met me, I was such a shy, timid person. No way I was going to do any of that. And look at me now.
Taking a microphone.
Yes. So he was most influential in my life. Even now, he still is, even though he's gone.
Okay.
So my husband is to be praised in my life.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That's Kay's mother, for those of you who don't know, Kay Holvader's mother. We have two more over here, then we'll have to move on.
My brother Spencer is probably the most influential for me on this. My family comes from a very eclectic background in religious beliefs. Father was raised Church of Christ. My mother, Methodist. My oldest brother is a Jehovah's Witness. My sister is a Pentecostal. And my brother found Church of Christ when he was in his mid-20s, And when we would talk to each other, he would just tell me stories that he was reading, and he made it interesting. Before that, I didn't find it interesting. I wasn't interested in it at all, to the point I was close to being an atheist, like not even believing it at all. But every time I talked to him, and I talked to my brother almost every day, and every time we talk, it could be a completely non-religious subject, and the conversation turns into, well, in my favorite book, it says this about that. And I could have never related it, I would never have related it to to the Bible, but he relates almost everything in life to the Bible, and he's helped guide me to where I am at now.
Excellent.
And right now, I'm probably just a bump on a pew, like he says right now, but that's a lot better than what I was 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, we want to help you become more than a bump on a pew. All right, Retha?
Well, Brother Dwayne, I'd have to say it was you. When I had decided I wanted to get baptized, I had been watching you and Brian preach online, and y'all really drew me in. And then when I decided I wanted to get baptized, I spoke to my brother. He was coming down from Vermont, and I wanted him to baptize me. So I had set a date out to be baptized. And you came over and spoke to me. And so after speaking with you, it was weird. I had this little voice in my head that just kept saying, here's water, what hindereth you from being baptized, even though I wasn't around water. And then when you came over, it was just like something reassured me, okay, let's go do this. And I really wanted my brother and my friends to be a part of it. I thought we were going to come over to the church and then I was just going to get baptized and go home. It meant so much that you really called people. People showed up, everybody that showed up. It just gave me such a wonderful feeling, and I'll never forget that till the day I die. And thank you.
Well, we just showed you what the stories in the Bible said, and then when we came up to that one, we decided it was time to do it right now. No need to put it off. The stories in the Bible are there for a reason, and there's no story in the Bible where when somebody realizes they need to be saved, they say, well, we can do that later, right? Every story in the Bible, they stop immediately, and they do it, and they become a Christian right then and there. So those are the stories that spoke strong to her. I think we learned a lot of lessons from this little exercise, from this question, and going through the Bible and looking how these people that never intended to make this huge difference in someone's life. They set out to do what God wanted them to do every day. And by doing what God wanted them to do every day, by walking the walk and doing what God wanted, that just makes a difference in people's lives. And how each of us, all of us, have people that have made a profound impact in our lives, whether it's family or friends or people that we had never known before, and just strangers that make a difference in our lives. And that shows us that with Jesus' help, and if we point people to Jesus, we can always make a difference in someone's life. And so that's what we got to keep doing. Just keep pointing people to Jesus. And he's the one that really makes the difference. We're just the people pointing to the one who could really make the difference. Hey, have you met him? You know him? Yeah, I know him. He's made a difference in my life. And you need to know him too. And there's just so many incredible things about that. All right, so we got to move on to the next question. Question number 7. One of the big stories in the lesson was the story of Esther. And the story of Esther is one of my favorite stories in the whole Bible. I love this story. It's an incredible story to spend 30 minutes telling because it's so profound in the way it does. But here you have Esther living in a time, probably Zerubbabel, Ezra, so after the temple is rebuilt, before Ezra comes back to reestablish the law, she's there, and she's just, in some ways, she finds herself in the right place at the right time, but there's a lot of things that go along with that made it that way. And that is really Mordecai's point to Esther. So the king has a queen, and they're having this huge party. I mean, this party lasts forever, and then they have an after party, if you will. And the queen is invited to the king's after party to show off to all of his other kings and prominent people in his kingdom. And she refuses to come. She just says no. Well, the queen's not doing what the king says. This is trouble. And so the king asked all his wise men, what do I do with my queen? And they say, basically, you need to make her not queen anymore. Send her out. She's no longer going to be queen. Because if she doesn't do what you say, king, then none of our wives are going to do what we ask them to do. And this is going to be total disaster in the entire kingdom. We have to put a stop to this. Well, eventually, as he goes on without a queen for a while, he wants a queen again. A king needs a queen, right? So he wants a queen. So he goes to the same wise men and say, what do I need to do? Now that my queen is gone, I need a queen. What should I do? And so his advisors come up with this pretty great idea that if you were the king, you probably would fall in love with. Let's go throughout your entire kingdom and look for the prettiest women available. The prettiest virgins in your entire kingdom. We'll bring them all here. And you can have your pick of the prettiest women in your entire territory. Oh, that sounds pretty good. Okay, let's go with that one. I don't know who had the second best idea, but it probably didn't even get any kind of press time at all. So he picks this idea, and so these women who come to town, this is so amazing. They have 6 months to look pretty and 6 months to smell pretty. I mean, it's like a year-long makeover. Every day, how can we make this woman more beautiful? How can we make her smell better? So that when she goes to the king, he can just be impressed by her. And so you have all of these women, and I've teased before that this is reality TV before reality TV, all living in the same house, competing for one crown. Whew, I would not have wanted the job to oversee that. Matt would volunteer for that, but no. All right? Wouldn't want that job at all. But Esther, there was something about Esther that even these men in charge, she found favor in their eyes. So she already had a character that was something that men noticed. And so when it comes her time to go to the king, now they could take anything from the house to show to the king, and I don't know if they could prepare whatever kind of food they wanted. They could take anything. They had anything at their disposal. No bars, nothing that would be held back. You go to the king and just make your case. Well, Esther doesn't really take anything with her. But the king falls madly in love with Esther. And so she is the one that gets the crown. The problem is, there is an advisor to the king that hates the Jews. And he wants all the Jews killed. And so he talks to the king about this. The king doesn't know Esther's a Jew. Haman probably doesn't know Esther's a Jew at this time. He goes to the king and says, there's this crazy group of people out there that have all these customs that are just odd, and they're just people that don't really serve you with their whole heart. They have their own God, their own system. Peculiar people, I think we should wipe them off the face of the earth. The king says, yeah, whatever. You have my ring. You just do whatever you need to do. You make the law. They make the law. And they seal it with the king's seal. And once a law is made in that time period, in that kingdom, and we know that from Daniel's time as well, it can't be changed. You can't even veto your own law. I mean, you just can't change it. So he passes this law, and so word goes out in all the region that this is going to happen, a particular day. All the Jews' enemies are going to be able to rise up and kill and demolish the Jews. Well, Mordecai hears this. And Mordecai, like right when the decree comes out, and he has a copy of the decree, it looks like. He gets in sackcloth and ashes, and Esther sees this. Word comes to her anyway that, hey, Mordecai, he's sitting there and she says she doesn't know what's going on. So they have this exchange that goes back and forth between them a couple times. And then she knows what she needs to do. Mordecai tells her that. And what is her response when she knows that Mordecai wants her to go before the king? What's her response? You know the law. you know that if I go before the king and the king has not called for me. I know this is sort of odd in our way of thinking, but even though he's madly in love with her, she's the queen, she can't just waltz into the throne room. Hey, I have something to talk to you about. Right? It doesn't work like that. And she goes, if I go and he doesn't reach out his scepter to me, I will be killed. And so Mordecai's response is an amazing response. Somebody paraphrase his response. Anybody remember the response? Mary's, I'll paraphrase it.
Don't miss out on helping God, because he'll find someone else. And where will that leave you?
All right, you have an opportunity here. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Know for sure that God's going to save his people. Right? There was no doubt in his mind that God was going to save his people. But who knows whether or not you have been put in this position at this time for this moment. That was powerful. That was a powerful argument that he had. And what was Esther's response to that? Yeah, I'll go. If I die, I die. And what does she ask Mordecai and those out there to do, outside the king's gates to do? And what she said she was going to do? Pray and fast. Fast and pray. 3 days, no food, no water. All right, you guys go no food, no water for 3 days. We'll go no food, no water for 3 days in here. And then I'll go before the king and see what happens. If I die, I die. Now, the rest of that story is also amazing. Earlier, Mordecai had saved the king's life, and the king can't sleep because Haman's building gallows. I don't know if it's because. I like to think it's because. All right, Haman's building gallows to hang Mordecai. It's got to be noisy, right? He's working all night. And the kid, man, what's that noise? He gets up. He has the law, his chronicles read to him, and the reading of the chronicles of his administration, it comes about that there was this man named Mordecai that saved his life, uncovered this plot to save his life. So he decides he's going to honor Mordecai. Haman comes in wanting to ask the king for Mordecai to be killed. Instead, Mordecai ends up not only not being killed, but Haman has to walk him on the king's horse, dressed in the king's royal apparel, around town saying, this is what happens to the one the king wishes to honor. This is what, and I can just imagine as soon as he put that horse down, he just goes and he slumps over some big rock. And then his family at that point, his friends and his family say, you know what? If that Mordecai is a Jew, you in trouble. Okay? And then he knew that Mordecai was a Jew, and he knew he was in serious trouble. And he ends up being hung on the gallows that Haman was making for Mordecai. So it's an incredible story. But here's question number 7. What does the story of Esther and Mordecai teach us about what we can do with our faith, talents, and courage? All right, we have Retha up here. You have a comment, raise your hand. Right here, Chris.
That's not what God can do for us, but what we can do for God.
All right. I think, does he quote Kennedy in the lesson himself? I think he does, doesn't he? Because I said, don't ask what God can do for me or what the church can do for me, what other people can do for me all the time. Start asking a better question. The better question is, how can I serve? How can I encourage? How can I help? You know, sometimes people expect just to be associated with a group of Christians, and then everybody's here to cater to me and my needs and my wants and all that good stuff. And that doesn't lead to a growing church. That leads to a church that just a whole lot of people doing a whole lot of work to satisfy a few. All right, Brian has a comment. Anybody else? All right, we have Will back in the back. Do we have somebody over here too? All right.
Yeah, sometimes we maybe lament our position in life, whether it's, some career or some situation that we're in. Certainly, it would seem lamentable for Esther to be a Jew in the situation where Haman wanted to exterminate all the Jews. But I think it's so powerful just to realize, like, man, maybe you're in that position for such a time as this. Like, maybe you're exactly where you need to be an influence for God in someone's life, even if it doesn't necessarily seem like the circumstances are our ideal. There are opportunities everywhere if we keep an eye on it and remember God's providence.
Yeah, one of the great things about the Esther story that sticks out to me, and we talked a little bit about this, about the woman with the flow of blood, how she had that flow of blood for 12 years, and there was a 12-year-old dying in the same story, and you wonder if God made both those things happen at the same time, even 12 years prior, to put this together. Wonder if it ever hit Esther. Wonder if this is why I'm so beautiful. You know, wonder if that's the only reason I'm beautiful. I mean, I could have been, God could have made me not as beautiful as I am, but I thought it was nice being beautiful, and I thought it was for my sake I was beautiful, and I was getting all the benefits from being beautiful, but then he's like, she's had to be at some point, it wasn't about me at all. It was about serving God. And so even those things, and our life experiences, even the hard things, the difficult things in our life lead us to who we are today, to be able to uniquely help the people God puts in our lives today and tomorrow. Bobby? And then Will back there. I'm sorry. I think I got out of order.
I think whatever abilities, talents, ambitions that God has given you, they're from God. And I think that to use those for God first and foremost is what he would want you to do. So I think that's a powerful message, that no matter what they were blessed with, Esther and Mordecai, they were all in for God no matter what and where they were at in their life, no matter what the cost. And I think that's important for myself and everybody to really think about what we're using our God-given talents and abilities for in helping others. And I think the example that we set just in our daily lives outside this building, I think that's what draws people to you, is how you live your life outside this building.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a unique point as well, and Jeff brought it up a little bit. Sometimes you might think your God-given talent has no application in the spiritual realm. I mean, like a doctor, I'm a doctor. You know, what does that application have in a spiritual realm? And you might say, what do I have? I mean, my God-given ability is something outside of the spiritual realm. No, everything is in the spiritual realm. And so we have to be able to make sure we use that. All right, we have two more. Will?
Yeah, I think my comment, was similar to the last couple points, is we have an opportunity to see the position that God has given us, the talents that we have, which are uniquely ours, the roles that we play, which are uniquely ours, which could provide a unique contribution to the church that maybe others can't provide.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we might need to spend some time thinking about our talents and how our talents transfer over maybe to a spiritual, as more of a spiritual work. But I think that would probably be something that we could help each other with, right? You know, I have this talent and I just don't see any use for it in this church. Well, there's got to be a use for it somehow, some way to influence people. Gail?
I think also you have to look at your faith over your fears. And she was fearful, but then she let her faith take over that and do the right thing. And we can choose fear in this day and age very easily, and it affects our faith, and we have to put our faith first.
Yeah, very good. I mean, you have people, all right, you got the microphone. Go ahead.
In line with that, we talked about Stephen the martyr. Do you think if he knew he was going to die before he preached that sermon, he'd get up and preach it the way he did?
Yeah, probably so. Maybe so. He had faith, right? He had faith. It's hard to know. It's hard to know. So maybe, I think God does hide things from us sometimes because he knows how we will respond. And so he doesn't give us all the information ahead of time. But a guy like Stephen, who knows what he would have done. All right, Mary, and then we'll move on.
Esther and Mordecai demonstrated that we should proceed with prayer. And I think it was Edwin Crozier said here one time, he said if you're having a hard time praying, just tell God where you are right now. You know, say, I'm sitting here, I'm feeling really low, and and he'll give you the strength.
Okay, good point. Good point. I think probably, I won't ask for a raise of hands on this, but chances are all of us have had times in our life where talking to God wasn't going very well, right? It was just really struggling with it. We don't want to talk to anybody. We don't want to talk to anybody in our family. Sometimes there are people that we come in contact with, we just want to go hide out, and sometimes we take that same approach to God. I don't want to talk to him either. And Mary's point that she says, Edwin said here one time was, just tell them the basics, where you are right now. Now, maybe not only the location, but this is how I'm feeling. I really don't want to talk to you right now because I really don't know what to say, or I don't think I'm worthy to come talk to you. You know, I've gotten this or that or the other, or I'm afraid what your answer might be. So I've been, sometimes people don't go to the doctor because they're afraid what the doctor might say to them, right? And so I'm afraid to come and ask you to help me because I'm afraid that might lead to something bad. You might think the way to help me is by making me suffer. All right, question number 8. What was there about the speech that Mordecai gave to Esther that convinced her to go to the king on behalf of the Jews? Was there anything else there different from what we already talked about? And then the next A there, 8A, what impact should this same speech have on our lives? All right, nothing? All right.
It's a phrase we remember.
Yeah, for such a time as this. So, I mean, and I think all of us, we should ask ourselves that question on a regular basis. Why am I here? What can I do for the Lord today? Why has He put me at Palm Springs Drive? Right? Why has He put me around all these other people? Who is there out there that my talents and abilities are uniquely capable of helping? Because none of us are capable of helping everybody. We have a relatively small group assembled here today. Let's say we have 80 in this room right now. Even with 80, you can't help all 80 of us. Right? You just can't. But you might be able to help 8 of us. And if all of us help 8 of us, then all of us have 8 people helping us. I think that's right. So I think that would be a huge encouragement to us. So we have to be more mindful of this speech, I think, and things like this speech. Who knows whether or not God put you at this place, at this moment, at this time, for you to do something for these people, whatever it is that you can do for them. And I think that's good for us to remember that on a regular basis. I think there's 2 more questions we'll hit real quick. He listed several things that people are needed to be used for in a local church. Did you guys go back and look at that list and say, this is about self-evaluation, is there anything that you'd like to share? That's on page 16. We won't read all those. But is there anything on that list on page 16 that you stood out to you that like, I need to work on that one? I am committing to work on that one. That's what I have evaluated my life, and I have found that I have fallen short on this particular one, and I want to improve on this. Nobody has anything they want to share on that one. All right, Jeff's going to bail me out here. Thank you, Jeff.
Well, the first approach I did, I checked off things that I thought I had the talent and skills to help with.
Okay.
But then I went further than that, and I said, okay, that's one thing to say I can help at the top of the page of 16. I can help with a prayer for an older one struggling because of his or her loneliness. But I went further to say, okay, do I know someone like that I could go help? And I found there were fewer of them that I could put a name by and say, yeah, I know someone that's in that category, someone in that category, someone in that category. So that just made me think, there probably is somebody that falls into each one of those bullets. I need to go out and find out who those are.
Okay.
And sorry, this is a plug, I guess, for House to House. Part of the object there is for us to know each other so we know. I couldn't put a name against every one of these, but in going and getting, because there's some people I don't know well enough to know if they are struggling with, if an older one is struggling with loneliness. I'm sure there probably are, but I can't put a name by it because I don't know that person well enough. So I took it as a goal to know people better so I could put a name by every one of these. So I could use those talents for that good.
All right, good. So use the talents for those people. Another approach could be just going to all the older people and talking to all of them, have brief conversations with all of them here at the building, or just make it your list. I'm going to go talk to all the widows. I'm going to go, or all the people who are handicapped, or all the people who can't get out, all the shut-ins, whatever the case may be. There's just a lot of things we can do. We all have abilities to do a lot of things to help somebody. Thank you for all of your comments. Go ahead and ring the bell.